Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this channel. Now this video is meant for our first year students who have no clue about law, business students. You're like, what is this law subject? How hard is it? We are supposed to study it. Is it easy? This video really is just introducing you to the basics of law and the basics of, in a very simplified version. We're just introducing you to the law. So I'm just explaining a little bit of the first aspects of what is the law, what is all this law about. And like I said, it's for our first year students who are doing Introduction to Law as a course unit. So in this video, I'm just going to define for you what is a law, why do you study it, and then what are the different classifications, and what is a case. You'll hear most of the times we're talking about, in this case, in that case, what do we mean by a case? So this is all that I'm talking about in this video. So what do we mean by the law? The law is really the policies or principles or regulations or rules in a particular place. For example, what are the rules that govern a university? What are the rules that govern Window Market? If the market is operating, what are the rules governing it? You're not supposed to pee here. You're not supposed to put trash here. All people who sell clothes are supposed to be in this area. All those are laws. And then things like in your home, what are the laws that govern your home? Maybe your parents say curfew is at this time. All those are laws. However, when we talk about law in this sense, we are saying it has to be enforceable. There has to be a legal sanction to it. That if you do something wrong, you can be imprisoned, you can be penalized, or you'll be fined. There has to be a legal implications. There must be a sanction. That's why we're saying it has to be enforced through sanctions, and it has to be those three things, that it must be an order, and it must be enforceable, that someone, you break the law, you're punished, and must be able to create a sanction for someone who's done something wrong against that law that we have put in place. So when you think about law, don't think about it as a complicated thing. Just principles, rules, and they're applying everywhere. So in business law, we really focus on those laws that govern how businesses run. What are the laws that govern how you set up companies or how you treat your employees? What are the laws that govern how you do business amongst people within yourselves or with other clients? That is what we really refer to when we're talking about the law. Of course, the question has always arisen, why do business students study law? Why shouldn't it be only limited to law school students? But business students study law, or we teach you law, because you need to know what laws operate as you're doing businesses. Some of the things that fail businessmen is they breach the laws, or they don't know the law and they do something wrong and they're penalized heavily or fined heavily. So really, this is for you to know your rights and responsibilities, so you to know how do you establish your business, what principles must you have in mind, where do you go in case someone has breached a provision you agreed to. So that is why you study law, so that you're competent or you're confident in the knowledge of how to run your business with the knowledge of the legal perspective of how to run your business. So one of the first things that we teach you is the broad classification of laws. Laws are divided into 3, 4, several broad categories. I'm just going to look at 4 broad categories to give you an understanding really of what do we mean by law, what aspects of law do we deal with. So there's a broad category of civil law and criminal law. And by civil law, we are talking about the law between people. John and Mary are fighting, they go to court. Criminal law, on the other hand, someone commits a crime and they're taken to court through police or the DPP. So when you commit a crime, that becomes criminal law. All the laws that govern issues of crimes, issues of enforcement through police, most of those laws are dealt with under criminal law. Now the laws that are between two people, contract, tort law, disagreements, family law, all the things between two people where no police is involved, no government involved, those are called civil laws. So all laws all over the world are either in a category of criminal or they're in a category of civil. That is one of the most or biggest broad categorizations of law. The second broad categorization is it's either a public law or it's a private law. And by public law, we are saying those laws that fall with governments. The government is involved. They're investigating an issue between the government and an individual, for example, international law. Or you find there's some administrative laws whereby you're suing someone in the government, or you're suing the government itself, and you are a private individual. So public laws are laws between the public or laws between the government. You know, Uganda is suing Kenya. Those are public laws. Private laws, on the other hand, are laws between two private individuals. The government is not involved, the state is not involved. It's just two private people suing each other or fighting it out, and this has nothing to do with anyone in the government or suing anyone in the government or a different, country. It's just two private persons, individual persons, civilians. Another major categorization is the distinction between substantive law and procedural law. Now, substantive law refers to the aspects of the law itself. For example, if you're talking about contract, what does it mean that this is a contract? What happens when the contract is breached? It's talking about the content of the actual laws. Procedural law, on the other hand, is talking about the procedures for enforcing a law. For example, if a contract has been broken, what court do you go to? What rules do you apply? The procedure, the court processes, the procedure of enforcing a right, that's the procedural law. Substantive law, on the other hand, is the substance of that contract. What are they fighting about? What does the law say that amounts to an offer, that amounts to an acceptance? That is substantive law. But procedural law is the procedure you follow to be able to enforce that contract. The other broad categorization, the last one that I'm looking at, that we usually look at, is it's either a domestic law or it's an international law. So domestic laws are the laws in a country, within a country. In fact, they're sometimes called municipal laws. Within a nation, what are the laws in Uganda? Constitutional law, contract law, land law, all those laws that affect the play of things in Uganda, those are called domestic laws. International laws, on the other hand, are the laws that concern other countries, the relationship with other countries. For example, the Kyoto Protocol or international trade law, the laws that are between Kenya and Uganda and the rest of the world. Those international treaties, those are international laws, and they're laws that govern how the world operates, how business in the world, for example, operates, or how the environment in the world is to be treated. Those are international laws. So the main other categorization is that every law is either a domestic law or it's an international law. So these are the broad categorizations, and all laws fall into one of these categorizations, really. We said, remember, laws are rules. So all existing legal rules fall into these major categorizations generally. So you hear us talk a lot about, in this case, they said this. In this case, it was established this way. But what really is a case? When you talk about a case, we're talking about the dispute. What are they fighting about? Let's assume, there's Moses is going to buy a Benz from Patrick. Okay? Moses sends his money, Patrick doesn't send the Benz. They start fighting. They are disagreeing. You didn't pay me fully, you gave me a bad car. They go to court. Let's assume Patrick sues Moses, okay? Or saying that you didn't pay me or the Benz you gave me was wrong. When they go to court, what they are fighting about is what we call the case. So a case is where different people have a dispute between themselves. They go before the court of law to seek a solution or a remedy. And that court they go to will determine who has the right or who is right in the situation. Now you find that once court has established who has the right in the situation, if another similar situation ever appears again, they will look at the case of Patrick and Moses to say that in the cases of Moses versus Patrick, court said this way. So in this other case that we're handling today, we'll deal with it the way the case of Moses versus Patrick dealt with the matter. So a case really is what is the fight about. And after the fight is taken to court and court has made a ruling or a decision on that matter, then after that, all the cases that come up or all fights that come up that are similar to this Moses-Patrick fight will be decided the same way this court dealt with in Moses versus Patrick. So many words, a mouthful. Moses, Patrick. Well, basically a case is a fight between two people. I'll give you another example of a case. Let's assume Mark is interested in Mary, okay? They're at campus, first year, they're interested in each other. So Mark tells Mary that, you know what, let's date for this time at campus, for these 3 years we're on campus. When we finish dating, we'll get married. So because of Mark's promise, Mary forgoes all other dudes. She doesn't date anyone. She stays faithful to Mark. Now, along the way, third year, Mark finds someone else and changes his mind. Okay? Let's assume in that case, Mary can sue. I'm just keeping it as simple as possible. If Mary is to sue in that case, suing Mark, that Mark, you broke your promise to me. I'm just using this as an example. That case will be called Mary versus Mark. Okay? And Mary versus Mark, because Mary is the one suing and Mark is the one being sued. This view, we call it versus. So because Mary was heartbroken, she's suing Mark for breaking her heart. So let's assume this issue is happening, around Nakawa. They'll go to the High Court of Nakawa to hear their matter. They'll go before the High Court judge. Now, when this case is decided, it will be registered in the books where they register High Court matters. So it will be registered in the High Court Bulletin. This is the HCB High Court Bulletin of 2022, because this case happened and was decided in 2022, and you find it on page 14. So you'll find that in this case of Mary versus Mark that was registered in the HCB of 2022 on page 14, when you open that law book or that book, you will find on page 14 this story of Mary versus Mark, or the case of Mary versus Mark, fully documented there. So when you talk about the case, in that documentation, what they put in that book, in the HCB, they will talk about the facts. What did they fight about? What were the facts? Mary was promised by Mark to be married. What are the issues? What are they disagreeing over? You broke your promise. You promised me that you'd marry me. You broke the promise. So the issue is breach of promise. What law is the court going to look at? The law will look at maybe the domestic relations law or the contract law. So in this case, as recorded, all these things will be well established. What is the decision of the court? What was the ruling of the High Court? What did the court say? The court said that no, there was no breach of contract from Mark because there was no agreement. There was no legal contract in the first place. So that will be the ruling of court. Now, after the court has made its ruling, the court is required to put a reason why they put that ruling. Why did you say that Mary cannot sue, that she could not sue, there was no binding contract? The court will give us its reasoning, and that reasoning is what we call the ratio decidendi in number 5. So in every case, you'll find all these 5 things appearing in that case, and that case will be recorded in a law book. Different law books exist for different courts and different countries. We'll talk about that much later. But this is what a case is, and this is where you'd find your case and how you'd find it documented. In conclusion, I want to stop here. I want to keep this video short. But basically, my goal was to introduce you to the law. What's this all about? What is a case? What are the broad categorizations of laws, And then for you to understand, especially and most important, that law is very simple, especially for business law. Because we keep it as basic as possible. We don't go into so much detail like it is done in law school. Because here we just want you to have the basics, of the law and how it applies to business. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be doing others on introduction to law, but I'll keep them short so that you don't run out of steam. Have a good day.